A few years ago, my girlfriend and I were looking for the ideal rental place online. I saw a house with a cheap price and conditions that also meet our requirements. So I contacted the landlord that afternoon. Make an appointment with the landlord to see the house. On that day, I drove my girlfriend to see the house. It is a 2-story through-the-sky house. There is a red brick wall on each side. After we arrived, the landlord was already there waiting for us to arrive. He looks very polite, easy to get along with and amiable, and opened the door to welcome us into the viewing house. The appearance of the house and the space for parking and barbecue in the open space in front of it. We are all very satisfied. But the moment I entered this house, I feel a little dizzy and feel a little unwell. As if we are not welcome in this house. In the moment I was surprised, I looked at my girlfriend. My girlfriend doesn't seem to feel it at all. With a look of joy, the landlord walked into the house with the landlord. When the landlord took us to visit the house, he constantly explains the various facilities and advantages, and always maintain a kind smile. His girlfriend seems to have a good impression of him. She also kept nodding her head to express her satisfaction. But I have been suppressing my uneasy emotions since I entered the door. The landlord opened the window for ventilation immediately after we entered. But I still smell a damp smell. This makes me a little worried. And I don't know why. My gaze is always unconscious, attracted by some dark corners. It's like something is looking at me there. Time flies quickly. After we visited this house, we walked out the door. The landlord still welcomed us again with a smile, and hope we can consider staying. Looking at his girlfriend's satisfied expression, I began to suspect that maybe I was really careless. So I signed a contract with the landlord that day. And in the next few days, we moved things to this house one after another. Plus cleaning time. We didn't start checking in until a week later. We had a great time a few weeks after we checked in. Everything is calm and okay, but just when I thought those anxieties were all my heartache, everything has changed. House. It's starting to get weird. One night 2 months later, we fell asleep quietly in the room. Suddenly there was a strange sound in the corridor. Sounds like the sound of hitting the floor. But it's like walking in the corridor with barefoot footsteps. I woke up in an instant. At this moment I looked at my girlfriend and she was still asleep. I continued to lie on the bed and listen quietly. But there is no sound outside. Just as I thought to myself, could it be that I heard it wrong? At that time, I closed my eyes again for only 3 seconds. I found that I didn't hear the strange voice wrong. It does exist. I tried my best to restrain my panic and try not to make a sound. Sit up carefully. Listening carefully to the movement outside all the way. Walked quietly to the door of the room. That strange voice is still ringing in the corridor. But, is this sound too slow? It sounds like a zombie jumping forward step by step. I stood by the door and hesitated for a while. At this moment the voice suddenly stopped. The entire corridor fell silent. I stood by the door and took a deep breath. Planned to go out and find out. Then gently turned the doorknob. Mustered the courage to open the door vigorously in an instant. I was stunned by what I saw in front of me. I saw a male head standing upside down in the corridor. The top of the head, the bottom of the neck, the top. And jumped in the direction of the living room. And a headless upper body also follows behind the head. I just watched him disappear into the dark like this. I'm so scared right now, I don't know how to deal with it. Always thought I was dreaming. So he blinked in horror. Cautiously probed out and looked into the living room. A terrifying scene came into view again. A shadow with a tall sun and a thin body like firewood. Start moving from our door. All the way across the sofa and floated to the other side. Then I stopped by the TV cabinet in the corner. My whole scalp is numb. The scene in front of me makes me unbelievable. I have a bitter face. Trying to figure out what this is all about, but my thoughts are confused and I can't understand everything I see in front of me. Wait for me to blink again. I can't be sure if he is still there. I was stunned for a while. Trembling and at a loss. At this moment, I suddenly realized that my girlfriend was still sleeping in the room. I looked back at her, and she was still asleep. So he hurriedly closed the door and decided not to let her be frightened. At this time, I was short of breath and my heartbeat was like a drum. I stood where I was until the tension calmed down a little bit. Only slowly walked back to the bed. I lay in bed all night and couldn't sleep. That weird scene keeps coming to mind. I don't know how to explain what I see in front of me. And after that day, there will occasionally be strange noises that haunt us. One night we sat in the living room watching TV and eating snacks. The sound of rummaging through the cabinets came from the kitchen. We were all stunned for a while. I got up and pretended not to care and walked to check. I walked into the kitchen and didn't find anything unusual. I thought something fell from the cupboard. But it doesn't seem to be the case. On the kitchen table, on the counter, and on the ground, no items fell. I also opened every cabinet. Hoped to find signs that something may have overturned. But never found it. In order not to worry his girlfriend, I walked back to the living room and explained the voice to her. It's the sound of me falling to the ground without hanging things up. Although I don't care about it on the outside. But in fact I am already a little unhappy. These 3 or 2 pranks have caused us trouble. And these are not the reasons why I decided to move away. A few days later, my girlfriend and her sisters went to sing at night. And I stayed in the living room at home and played games. As time passed unconsciously, it had already reached 12 midnight. I stopped the game in my hand and started to clean up and wash. I went back to my room and went to bed. However, I failed to feel a stable sleep quality. I don't know how long it took after falling asleep. I woke up in my sleep. Because I feel my feet being pulled. But my feet didn't move at all. Only the ankle feels a force pulling. I originally thought it was a temporary show of nerves. But after I moved my feet to the other side, it didn't take long for that feeling to disappear and reappear. But this time I was pulled to the end of the bed by that force. I didn't even see a ghost shadow. And because of fear of falling. Panic. Quickly turn your body into a lying down position. Then subconsciously stretched out his hand to grab the quilt, or the end of the bed. But I can't catch anything. When I was dragged away from the edge of the bed, I was surprised to find out. I didn't even fall to the ground, but floated. At the same time, I saw a person lying on the bed. It turned out to be myself. In a moment of surprise, I suddenly realized. I'm getting farther and farther away from the bed and have reached the door of the room. I struggled desperately, afraid that I would never come back. At this time, anger eating. In a situation of panic and anger, I roared frantically with all my strength and cursed frantically. Although I can't remember what I scolded at all. But it seems to work. When I opened my eyes again, I'm already lying on the bed sweating profusely. I got up and walked to the living room angrily. Turned on all the lights. Playing games there trying to dispel fear. That's it. I also unknowingly fell into drowsiness again. My girlfriend bought breakfast in the morning and came back to find me sleeping in the living room. He woke me up and asked me to go to my room to sleep. But I'm almost awake and drowsy. We were eating breakfast in the living room and watching TV. And halfway through eating, I mentioned the house to my girlfriend. Also tell her what happened last night. My girlfriend's expression became serious after listening to my description. She also admitted that she has always felt the unusual of this house, except for occasional strange noises. She even dreamed of a man with a hideous face who seemed to be scolding her. Hearing this makes me feel even more inexplicable. Why does she have to be scolded too? These inexplicable conditions make me even more unhappy. I want to leave here as soon as possible. But my girlfriend hopes we can continue to live. Her reason is that the rent for this house is too cheap. And she really likes this place. But going through that night that felt almost fatal. I still told her we can't stay anymore. After that, my girlfriend also agreed with us to leave here. But if you continue to live, I don't know what the consequences will be.